Really the last big war we explore in detail is Vietnam, but I want to make reference to some of the more modern wars in American history, if for nothing else than just to give you an idea of a conflict maybe you have a family member who served in, or to give you an idea of kind of when the hangover from Vietnam is finally raised. So let's look at modern warfare here. Operation Desert Storm in the early 1990s. A guy named Saddam Hussein is in charge of the country of Iraq. You can see it there in the map. And just below Iraq, that little yellow country, is the country of Kuwait. Uh, it's an oil rich region, both countries, but Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait, and the world community, really as a whole, reacts very negatively to this. We send troops over to Saudi Arabia, which is just south of Kuwait, in an operation that becomes known as Desert Shield. And for several months, they try to negotiate for Saddam Hussein to pull his troops out. When he doesn't, Operation Desert Storm takes place. And really, inside of 2.5 weeks, the United States and this international coalition will have pushed Saddam Hussein completely out of Kuwait. It's extremely, um, it's a fast operation. It's very effective, and it restores a lot of faith in America's military might. Right? We looked and said, "Wow, you know, our technology, our soldiers are so much better than everybody else." Kind of restores some of that confidence that may have been lost in the conflict of Vietnam. I remember this as a small child. One of the big deals were the yellow ribbons. People would tie them around trees. There's an old song from World War II, "Tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree." But people would wear these or put them on their car antennas, especially if you had somebody who was serving overseas. A guy named Lee Greenwood wrote and recorded a song called "God Bless the USA" that was like every third song on the radio. I think there was a rule that had to be "God Bless the USA." But like I said, this one really kind of clears the air from the bad feelings hanging over the U.S. military after Vietnam. Um, Saddam Hussein does remain in power, though, in Iraq, somewhat controversially. This took place under the first Bush administration, and there were people that wanted him to go in and kind of take Saddam Hussein out, and he says, no, that wasn't the mission. They'll end up putting some restrictions on Iraq, where they've got to, they can only trade their oil for food and things like that. So these guys aren't getting rich off of the oil in the region. Um, but this is kind of that first big conflict. When September 11th happens in 2001, we find ourselves we're going to find ourselves embroiled again in Iraq. Obviously, September 11th, the United States is attacked by operatives from Al Qaeda under the leadership of Osama bin Laden. They crash planes into the Twin Towers in New York City. The towers fall, killing almost 3,000 people and ushering in kind of a new era in American history. What we end up having is, um, sorry, I had a little hallway disturbance there. But basically, what's going to happen, though, right? If this is a terrorist attack from Osama bin Laden, he doesn't represent a country. But the United States wanted to know, where do we retaliate? How do we get, for lack of a better term, some revenge? And so we invade the country of Afghanistan. And there was belief that Osama bin Laden was hiding in the hills of Afghanistan, that his organization was being supported by a group of folks there called the Taliban. Now, the Taliban were already a part of history. They'd fought against the Soviets when the Soviets had invaded Afghanistan in the late 70s and 80s. If you've ever seen the third Rambo movie, actually takes place in Afghanistan and has a huge part to play in the Cold War. But we will invade the country of Afghanistan in order to try to sniff out Al Qaeda and catch Osama bin Laden. We end up having to surge in the country, and it's 2021, and we're just now putting in plans. They say by the September 11th of this year, it'd be interesting to see if it happens, that all American troops will be withdrawn from Afghanistan. But that would make it obviously our longest war up to that point, and people are kind of anxious as far as what's going to happen with Afghanistan, after this whole thing is over. We do end up going back into Iraq, and this time taking out Saddam Hussein. He's eventually tried and hanged by his own people. But the story was that in the Bush administration, at least, that they had weapons of mass destruction. We were worried they were going to get nuclear or chemical weapons that were going to be a threat to the world. And so the United States goes back in again. This effort was not nearly as popular as the first Gulf War. Not a lot of the people in the world community go with us. Kind of a controversial war, and it ends up again embroiling us in the country of Iraq. Kind of the problem was when we went in, we didn't really have an idea of what Iraq was going to look like afterwards, and so we tried a little bit of nation building. There are three groups of people that live in Iraq that really don't like each other, and so trying to install democracy there has been a little more of a difficult process, I think, than what maybe we would have thought. But it's a good illustration of just how warfare has changed, and it's not, you don't have the clear and easy, kind of villain and path to victory that you have in a place like World War II. Really, since World War II, the conflicts we've been in have been much harder to navigate, victory much harder to kind of pinpoint and define, and so it's a very different time that we live in when it comes to warfare. So something that starts all the way back in the Revolution, obviously our country born out of war, but something that has greatly changed by the time we come to the present day.